Hi knitters, welcome to episode 63 of the Knitty McPurly podcast. I am Devin Ventry. You can find me online as Knitty McPurly on Instagram at knittymcpurly.com. And if you want to email me, I am Devin at knittymcpurly.com. I have recently reached a level of, I want to say popularity, but maybe notoriety, in which I get more emails than I can respond to, which really kind of hurts my heart because I really like to respond to people. If I do not respond to you, please send me another email and say, please respond to me, because it probably got buried in my inbox. I never mean to ignore anyone. I read all of the comments that you leave me. By the way, subscribe, thumbs up, leave me a comment. I read them all, even if I don't respond other than to click like, I've definitely read them. So today is Friday, January 7th. It's very snowy here in Virginia. My one daughter who goes to school is off of school today, which means that we're all off of school. Because if you're a homeschooler and like our house is situated such that the sledding hill is right here, like I can look at it from my podcast perch. Like there's no way you can sit inside and watch all the other kids sled. Like that's just not nice. So we pretty much take the day off. So we ended up only doing school this week, Wednesday, Thursday. But whatever, that's fine. Next week we'll make it up. We're ahead this year anyway. So this is my new favorite drink, by the way. This is fizzy water, a splash of cranberry juice, and the squeeze of a lime. And then there's a little lime floating in there for cuteness. Super cute. So I want to start off with progress and shop news. The first thing is that I am having a flash sale this weekend, starting right now and running through Monday, January 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 2022. I'm having a flash sale. Use the code BRINGIT22 because we're having a good attitude about the new year. Code is BRINGIT22, and you can use that for 20% off. I should have made it 22% off. That would have been smart. It's the first half. This is the 20 for the 22. I don't know, whatever. 20% off everything because I am clearing stuff out to make way for new stuff. I have new things coming for the winter. It's all very exhilarating and I'm pumped about it. The retreat. I've gotten so many helpful questions and comments about the retreat. The Knitting McPurly non-elite retreat, that's not what I'm calling it. I'm calling it the Cozy Mountain Lake Retreat, is going to be January 26th through the 29th of 2023. Lots of interruptions today because it's a snow day. Apparently our sleds aren't fast enough. I don't know. The grass is always greener, right? I'm like, load more kids on there, get some weight, you'll go down that hill faster. So anyway, that's when the retreat will be a year from now. My attitude toward just about everything is let's just go for it. Like, let's just do it. Sign the contract. Go all in. Which is why I am married to my very risk-averse, level-headed husband who says things like, you know, what if this happens? Or what if this happens? And insurance and taxes and gratuities and all this stuff. So with the retreat, we are still getting all of our ducks in a row, but be assured that the ducks will be in a row. And as soon as I have that nailed down, I will let you know, hopefully at the next podcast or before. The best way to be alerted about the retreat is to go to my website and sign up for the newsletter, www.knittymcpurly.com. Wait for the little pop-up, put your email in there, and then when I send out the newsletter about the retreat, you'll have lead time. It won't be like, go now and get it. I'll give you plenty of lead time so that you can, you know, put it in your calendar or set an alarm or whatever. But that will be forthcoming. We're still working on it. Okay, the Lent Mystery Knit Along. You guys, last week, these things went on sale. So I podcasted last week on Friday. The Lent calendar with Mystery Knit Along went on sale Saturday at noon. They sold out in like 45 minutes. I thought I had a lot. It's gone in 45 minutes. And then I probably got between 50 and 70 emails saying, are you gonna make any more? Is there a waiting list? Can I still get them? And trust me, there is nothing that I would rather do than make Lent calendars for everybody. I want everybody to have a Lent calendar. But there's only like 6 weeks between now and then, and that's not humanly possible. So what I'm gonna do is we're going to open up just the mystery knit along to anyone who wants it. And that will go on sale, Fat Tuesday, the Tuesday before Ash Wednesday. You can get the mystery knit along. I haven't exactly worked out how I'm gonna do that, but stay tuned. We got plenty of time. It's not until the beginning of March. So if you want to knit along with during Lent, but you were not able to snag a Lent calendar, you'll still be able to buy that pattern and do the mystery knit along with us using some scraps. This uses 40 different colors of 10 grams each. That's what the calendar is. And the calendar comes with reflections and prayers and sacrifices and things like that we can do during Lent, which obviously will not be in the mystery knit along. And it also comes with yarn. But still, it'll still be great, and it's more economical, and you can use up your scraps. You can also, reuse a color. Like if you have a color that you really like that you want to reuse, you can do that too. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, just ask me, and I will do my best to get back to you. And if I don't, yell at me, because I really never want to ignore anyone. If I have ignored you, like sometimes I've been ignored by people, and I take it to heart, because I'm just kind of self-centered like that, I guess. But if you ever feel ignored, please message me, because I never want anyone to feel that way. I've just missed it, or it's gotten buried in my inbox, or I don't know what. But just, yell at me if I haven't been able to get back to you. Okay. What else? New things are coming. And that's a big reason for the sale. Like I wanted to clear out, I have a few McPurly pouches left. I'll put up some pictures right now as I'm talking of things that are available right now that you can get for 20% off with the code BRINGIT22. These are things that I don't have very many left of, and I'm looking to clear out to make room for new winter stuff. I have fabric coming for new McPurly pouches. I'm very excited. It's either winter themed or Valentine themed. That's going to be really awesome. Also, Knitter's Hand Balm, which I have wanted forever and ever. I talked about this a couple weeks ago. The lady who was next to me at the Manassas holiday market back in December makes body butter. And I didn't really think much of it until Gigi bought some, and I put it on my hands and I was like, oh my gosh, it's perfection. It's like I've tried other Knitter's hand balms before that are kind of waxy, and this is not like that. This is more buttery, and you put it on and you just give it a minute and it's gone. And you can knit, and it's not like lotion where it's still wet and you're gonna get it on stuff. It just your skin just soaks it up. So I'm going to have those. I've been messaging with Antoinette. Isn't that such a pretty name? The name of her business is Mary Louise Luxe Beauty. So I assumed her name was Mary Louise, but it's not. She named it after her grandma. Her name is Antoinette. And she makes, she's gonna make me some little, sized for a Notions pouch, Knitter's Hand Balm that will be in the shop coming up soon. Very pumped. I don't even have a wholesale price from her yet. So I don't know what I'm gonna be charging for that, but I'm excited. Gigi bought this jar of it like this, and it's like 2/3 gone. I think she's been slathering it all over because we're all just so dry in this cold winter weather. Also, hopefully I put these pictures up when I was talking about McPurly pouches. There are necklaces you can get for 20% off, pom-poms, as always, patterns. There's a few yarn kits left, but you can get all of those for 20% off through Monday with code BRINGIT22. Okay, this week's topic. I want to talk about swatches and swatching. As someone who has watched a lot of knitting podcasts and talked to a lot of knitters over the past however long, 5 or 6 years, I've noticed that there is, what's the word? I want to say like not yarn, but knitting snobbery around swatches. Is swatching important? Yes. Don't take away from me that I don't think swatching is important. I totally think it is. There are a couple main reasons why we should swatch. If you are new, swatching is where you use the needles and the weight of yarn that the pattern designer has recommended, and you knit something small, a swatch, to check and see if you have the same stitches per inch as they do in whatever pattern they suggest. For example, if the gauge is listed as such and such amount of stitches and this many rows in 4 inches in stockinette stitch knit in the round, then you need to knit a swatch in the round. And there are ways to do that. Cheating, I don't love that. I'm kind of a purist with that. I like it I like to do the swatch in the round because I feel like I get something more accurate. But you do you, whatever. There are 2 main reasons to swatch. The first one I think is, well, I guess there's sort of 3 main reasons. The main reason you swatch is because everybody knits differently. I might knit super loose and you might knit super tight. And I've actually been accused of being a loose knitter. As if. I'm offended. Apparently I'm kind of a loose knitter. So I hear from a lot of people, if they are tighter knitters, that they need to go down a needle size to, get the right gauge for my patterns. So if you're also a loose knitter, then you're in the right place. It's great to find a designer that works with your gauge because you probably won't have to swatch every time. If you find somebody who has a lot of things that you want to make and, works kind of similarly to you, or if you just know what to do with that designer. Like if, I'm going to work this designer, I know I need probably to go down 2 needle sizes and then swatch with that needle. So because the designer may not knit with the same tension as you need to swatch to verify how many stitches per inch you have and how many they have. And you want to try and get as close as possible before you knit the thing. And you do that for 2 reasons. The first of which is that you want it to fit. With something larger, this is particularly important, such as a sweater. The smaller the garment, the fewer the stitches, the smaller the margin for error. So if you're making something smaller, especially if the yarn is bigger, it's just fewer stitches, and so the margin for error is less. So you don't always have to swatch. If you're making a shawl particularly, you don't need to swatch except for the second reason, which I'm about to talk about. If you're making socks or a hat or mittens or a cowl, it's kind of up to you. Because of the size thing and because of the second reason, which is that you don't want to run out of yarn. If you have a limited amount of yarn, then you might want to swatch just to be sure. My 11th hour hat is knit in bulky weight yarn. And it actually comes with directions on how to knit this tiny little swatch just to verify that you're gonna have enough yarn to make it. Because usually in a skein of bulky, there's like 100, 108 yards, and you don't wanna run out. You wanna be able to make the whole hat. So if you can knit this particular swatch in this particular measurements, then you're good. You can unravel it and go ahead and make the hat. If not, then you're gonna need more yarn. So that's one example of when you would wanna do a swatch if you're knitting a non-garment, say a hat. Personally, I swatch for sweaters, and that's about it. If I am making a shawl, I don't aim to hit the gauge of the designer. I just aim to hit the gauge that makes the fabric that I want, if I'm not worried about yarn quantities, which I'm usually not. I don't mind usually picking up and knitting with something else if I have something similar, or I don't know, I like character in things, and so I don't need perfection in my garments. Patterns are another story. I like pattern perfection because, that's going out far and wide, and people read things differently, so it needs to be comprehensive and have everything that everyone could possibly need. So, but with my own particular knitting, whatever. So this is one faux set that I made what I did for this one is I held a fingering weight double with a mohair. And the reason I did it is because I knit my original faux set and it's addicting. Like once you make one, you just can't stop. There's something really addicting about this pattern. And I had ordered more yarn to make another one, but it hadn't come yet. And I'm like, well, I can't wait. Like, I gotta make it right now. So I had some fingering weight and some mohair that I held together, which in my humble opinion is not really a DK weight. Sometimes I will add mohair to something to just up the weight a little, but I don't feel that it really ups it significantly, in my humble opinion. You may disagree, but what I did for this is I just knit the next size up, and I made this a little bit longer too. So, you know, I have 4 children and I'm about to be 44 years old, so the ship has sailed on cropped sweaters, but like I have it on right now, you know, you can wear it over something. I especially like to wear it over a dress. I think that looks really pretty. Where was I going with that? Swatching. Yeah, so the loose answer for when do I need to swatch is sweaters and anything that you might be worried about running out of yarn. The tighter answer is you should always swatch, especially if you're unfamiliar with a designer, because the designer has written the pattern in the gauge in which they knit. That's it. Like there's no like standard, I mean, there is a standard gauge, but it's just a guideline. The designers have written it in their own gauge. So one question that I get a lot is I knit my swatch and I hit my stitches per inch gauge, but my rows are off. What do I do? Do I continue to try to use a different needle, or is this good enough? And I would say that typically sweaters that are knit this way, this dimension, the width dimension, is determined by stitches, right? Rows is more length. And length is something that, especially if it's something like a top-down sweater, length is something that you could change as you go. So I would definitely go with the stitch gauge over the row gauge. If it were a sweater that were knit differently, like if, like for example, in my Canyon cardigan, the gauge is written such that you want to hit the row gauge more than the stitch gauge because of the way that the sweater is knit. It's knit kind of up and down this way in the back, like I talked about last week. So it depends on the pattern, but most of the time, stitch gauge wins over row gauge. Does that help? I hope. So that was this week's topic. Moving on to the word of the week, which is, you guessed it, swatch. So the word swatch first entered the English language in the 1500s, which I was kind of surprised. I thought that was kind of recent. And what it was when merchants would take their cloth to a dyer to have it dyed, they would attach a little cloth tag on there that was just a small piece of cloth that indicated that it was theirs, it belonged to them. Because dyeing was a time-consuming process, and it still is. Dyeing's a time-consuming process. Because of that, the dyer would take in fabric from lots of different merchants at once. And so the way that you identified yours was this swatch, which was like a cloth tag on the fabric so you could identify it. So basically the word swatch came to mean any small piece of fabric. Now, tracing the etymology of this word back from the Old English swath, this means something to the effect of footstep, trace, or vestige. So it would mean like some trace of something. Fast forward to the Proto-Germanic, still need to learn what proto means. Proto, is that like early Germanic? That's my guess, I don't know. I should look that up. Proto-Germanic, swatho, and there were a couple different like Finnish, Dutch, different variations of words. going back to the German word Schwad, which means a row of cut grass, or the space covered by a single cut of the scythe. So this is how it makes sense to me. This chunk that you swathed is this swath, right? Schwad, swatho thing. It's your section, right? So then it's like an identifying mark. Like, this is my land that I have, the grass on which I have cut. So then that becomes a swatch, which is the identifying mark on this fabric. And because of that, it's just, oh, well, a swatch is just a little piece of fabric. The dictionary and the internet articles that I read talked about how this is not a word that's used much outside of sewing and knitting circles, but I mean, any kind of like interior designer uses swatches, right? Like swatches are just little, pieces of whatever the thing is, wallpaper or carpet or curtains or whatever. It's just a little piece of what the thing is. So I thought that was super interesting. What do you do in terms of swatching? Like, I remember one time I was knitting a swatch and I was amongst other knitters and I was wearing, isn't this cute? My sister-in-law got this for me for Christmas. I was wearing a leather bracelet that when you take it off, it's a ruler. And she was asking me, she's like, oh, what's the gauge on that? And so I laid it down on my leg and I took off my bracelet and I just started to measure it. And she was like, oh, your leg is not flat. And that is not a legit ruler. That is a bracelet, which may or may not have stretched. And I was like, so I later checked my bracelet to see, like, I held it up to a ruler and it's legit. It has not stretched. It was fine. My leg is not so thin that it's like this. It's not like that. It's more like this. So I kind of felt like that was a legit way to check gauge. Maybe not the absolute perfect way to do it. But again, I was just checking. I wasn't like I wasn't marking it down in a pattern or anything. So my point in that little anecdote is some people are very particular about their swatches. When it comes to my own knitted garments, I check, but I'm not a swatch Nazi. Remember the soup Nazi? I'm not a swatch Nazi. No knitting for you. Okay, so here's what happened. Did I talk about everything? I think I did. Last week, I read you a story from Cheryl Lee, and she and I continued to communicate after that, and she sent me this message that I just wanted to share with you because I loved it so much. She said, "Thank you for telling my story on your podcast. It was fun to hear you read it. I had been looking forward to today's podcast and was not disappointed. I'm very glad you've decided to keep the Knitters Stories segment going. I think it's important to keep telling these stories because they connect us and help to bring our community of crafters together. This is our oral tradition. These stories are very much the antidote to cancel culture, which has divided and silenced our community. Cancel culture is a soul-crushing force in the world. It is evil. It has nothing to do with what political candidate anyone supports. It's not about winning elections. There are no winners. Cancel culture is about silencing everyone and making us all live in isolation and fear. The angry mob is terrified. It was not an accident that the first people to be canceled in the knitting community were canceled for sharing their stories. It was a well-calculated move to destroy a community. When we tell our stories, we profess our humanity. It's a risk to share ourselves, but there are great benefits as well. We are all human and make mistakes. Maybe I'll offend someone someday, but I could just as easily bring some much-needed light to someone's life. That's why we have to forgive people who mess up and say the wrong thing, because they are learning to bring their gifts to the world just like the rest of us. It's time to take a stand against cancel culture and start telling our stories again. That is from Cheryl Lee. And my response to her said, I got goosebumps when I read that. And just now, reading it again, I got goosebumps again. She is absolutely right. And I will definitely be keeping this segment. I actually got more than one submission for today's podcast, so I have one for next week too. But please, if you have a knitting story that you would like to share, please send it to me, email it to me, take a video, audio recording, write it out and I'll read it for you, anything you want. Any knitting story to profess your humanity so that we can be a community again is welcome. Thank you. I would love to hear it, see it, read it, whatever. Devin at knittingmcpurly.com or on Instagram, either one. Today's story, So Here's What Happened, is from Tabitha of Murder Knits. And it is super, super cute. She has been knitting for a very long time. And it's just an adorable story. So here's Tabitha.
Hi, Devin from Knitty McPurly. This is Tabitha from Murder Knits, and I have a little knitting story to share with y'all. I've been knitting since I was 10, and I would pack my knitting with me to school, and I would knit on lunch breaks, in between classes, and if I could sneak and knit under my desk during lectures, I would do that. One day in English Lit, we found out that our teacher, Mrs. Cinco, was pregnant, and I thought it would be cool to knit her a baby sweater during class, but I had to sneak knit it because I wasn't supposed to be doing that. So at the end of the term, right before she went on maternity leave, I stood up and I presented her with a gift, and in the package was a baby sweater and a card. And I remember I wrote in the card, I knitted this every time we had a lecture and I never once got caught. And since I got an A in the class, I think that you should revisit being able to knit out in the open, because I did get caught one time before and I got in trouble for that. But I said I had snuck knitted this sweater and it did not affect my grades. So please revisit me knitting in class. She loved the sweater. She thought it was clever that I was able to do it during class and not get caught, but she declined to let me knit again, and she moved my seat in the front so she could be able to watch what I was doing. So I just thought I'd share a funny little knitting story, and I will send you a picture of the very first baby cardigan that I knitted. It was white and green. I believe it was in Red Heart. So knit during class, kids. Thanks.
I think that we're going to have to take a vote on whether or not we agree with Tabitha's teacher in moving her seat and telling her not to knit anymore. I think that if I had been that teacher, I would have said, wow, you got an A in my class while knitting? Maybe you should keep knitting. That sounds awesome. I would totally be game for that. But, I'm not sure. She didn't specify how old she was and how long ago this was. She looks pretty young to me, so I'm not exactly sure. But I think I would have embraced the knitting. But that's just me. I'm a homeschool mom, and I let kids run in place while they're doing their work. If they get their work done, that's all I care about. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me. This has been so much fun. There are some bloopers as usual. I'm not including all of them because it was a lot of interruptions. My slide's not fast enough, and I want to play chess, and no one will play with me. Anyway, go shop the sale if you're interested. The code is BRINGIT22, and I will see you back here next week. Bye, knitters. What are you doing? What do you have here?
Minty, actually, I know you think she's a unicorn, but she's actually...
She was in disguise. What are you doing? You gonna go sled? Look at all those kids out there sledding on the hill. Why don't you go sled?
It's not fun. Our sleds don't fly as fast as
Well, you should try both sleds, both the green and the black.
Yeah, we need to come together, and then we knit together on the green slide, and then we went on a black slide.
Because the heavier it is, the faster you'll go. Load kids onto there and you'll go fast. All right? Beat it.
Wait!
So you want to say goodbye?
I mean, woof, woof, woof.